There are places where the price tags never change, but the air shifts when no one's watching. There are aisles that echo more than footsteps, echo choices, mistakes, warnings. In today's video, you'll step inside 6 true tales that all begin the same way, with a quiet trip to Dollar Tree, but none of them end where you'd expect. A pregnant woman craving candy meets a stranger who offers more than help. She offers a future she was never meant to control. A teen looking for sketch supplies ends up being hunted by a man who thinks he's the captain of something darker than any ship. A cashier locking up late finds herself stalked by a car that shouldn't have returned, but did. And 3 more stories, each more unsettling than the last, because the horror here isn't in the dark. It's between the shelves, and sometimes it follows you home. If these stories make you think twice about where you shop, or who might be watching, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to High Scare Stories for more true tales that never quite leave you alone. Story 1. The Woman at Dollar Tree. The incident I'm about to share happened in the spring of 2017. I was 7 months pregnant, and every day felt heavier, not just physically, but emotionally too. I had been living with my aunt for the past few months. She was the only one who stood by me when my boyfriend found out I was pregnant and walked away without a second thought. My aunt never judged me. In fact, she treated me with a warmth I had never received from my own mother. Living in her small house on the edge of town gave me a sense of safety I hadn't felt in years. But safety is a fragile thing, something you often don't realize is there until it's gone. That day she came down with a fever. She could barely lift her head from the pillow and insisted I stay home, but my cravings were unbearable. I told her I'd just run down to the Dollar Tree a few blocks away to grab snacks and juice. She looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Be careful, okay." I nodded and smiled, brushing it off. I was tired of feeling like a burden, like someone who always needed help. For once, I wanted to do something on my own. As I walked out and locked the door behind me, I had no idea those would be the last calm moments of the day. There was something in her voice when she said those words. I didn't notice it then, but now, thinking back, there was a quiet fear in her tone, a fear she never spoke out loud. The Dollar Tree was nearly empty when I arrived. A soft chime echoed as I pushed open the glass door. The place had always felt a bit cold to me, with its flickering fluorescent lights and long, silent aisles. I grabbed a cart and moved slowly, rubbing my lower back as I walked. The quiet was oddly comforting. At first, I wandered past the snack section, looking for the exact brand of sour candies I had been craving for days. When I finally spotted a bag of chips on the top shelf, I stretched, but my belly made it almost impossible to reach. I was just about to give up when I heard a voice behind me, gentle and deliberate. "Let me help you with that." I turned and saw an elderly woman standing a few steps away. Her frame was small and she wore a dark shawl draped around her shoulders. Her smile was warm, eyes soft. I smiled back politely and stepped aside. She grabbed the chips and handed them to me. "Thank you," I said. Her hand gently brushed my cheek. "Where is your husband, dear?" she asked, still smiling. I hesitated for a moment before replying. "I don't have one." Her smile faltered just slightly. "Oh. Then the father." I looked down. "He's not in the picture either." She nodded slowly, her eyebrows tightening. "You really shouldn't be out alone in your condition." "My aunt usually helps," I said quickly, "but she's sick today. That's why I had to come." The woman's eyes scanned the store, then returned to me. "That's very risky," she murmured. "How long have you been with your aunt? Do your parents know?" I began to feel a faint unease curling in my stomach, but I answered her anyway. It felt rude not to. She followed me down the next aisle without hesitation, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her shoes made soft tapping sounds on the tile as she walked just a step behind me, asking questions that felt a little too personal. I tried to keep the conversation light, but there was something about her presence that started to press on me, slowly and steadily. She commented on my cravings, suggested vitamins I should take, talked about the importance of warmth and rest during pregnancy. At first I thought she was just being kind, maybe a lonely grandmother who saw in me a reflection of her past. But as the minutes passed, her tone changed. She began criticizing my aunt. "If I were your guardian, I'd never let you walk around in this condition," she said firmly. I smiled politely, trying to steer the conversation away, but her face remained, still her lips tight, her eyes unblinking. Then she said, "I have a farmhouse just outside town. You and your baby would be safe there. You could rest, eat fresh food, sleep all day if you wanted." I blinked, unsure if I had heard her right. "Excuse me?" She smiled again, wider this time. "I could take care of you. Better than anyone ever has." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Thank you, but I'm okay. I really need to get going." Her smile didn't fade. She stepped closer. "Let's go to your place first. Pack your things. I'll drive you to my house." My heart began to pound in my chest. I pulled my cart away from her and walked off without responding. She didn't follow immediately, but I felt her eyes on my back, like a shadow that stretched across every aisle I entered. I hurried through the rest of the store, grabbing whatever I could without thinking much. I just wanted to get out. Me, check out. I scanned the aisles one last time. She was nowhere in sight. For a moment I wondered if I had imagined how strange it all felt. Maybe she was just being nice and I overreacted. The cashier barely made eye contact as I paid. A young employee offered to help me carry my bags to the car, and I accepted without hesitation. His presence brought me a brief sense of relief. As we reached the parking lot, the sun was already beginning to fade behind the treetops. The air was cooler now and the lot was empty, silent except for a soft wind that brushed through. After thanking the boy and watching him walk back inside, I stood alone, clutching the keys. I was about to get in when I felt that familiar heaviness in my bladder, one of the many joys of late pregnancy. I groaned. Driving while needing to pee was not an option, and I definitely couldn't wait another 10 minutes to get home. I looked back at the store but shook my head. No way I was going back inside. Then I remembered the small public restroom tucked away at the far end of the parking lot. It was rarely used, but I'd seen it before. I locked my car and made my way to it, passing a few flickering lights overhead. The door creaked open when I pushed it. Inside were 3 stalls, all empty. The space smelled faintly of bleach and metal. I entered the first stall and closed the door behind me. A few seconds passed. Then I heard it. The restroom door opening again, slow and deliberate. Footsteps followed. Not rushed, not hesitant. Just calm. They stopped just outside my stall. I froze, heart racing. Then silence, until I heard it. Breathing, deep, raspy breathing from above. I slowly tilted my head up, and that was when I saw her. She was standing on the toilet seat in the stool next to mine. Her body twisted unnaturally, so that her face hovered just above the top of the divider. Her eyes were wide, almost too wide, like the skin around them had been pulled tight. There was no warmth in them now, only a strange, hungry intensity. I couldn't move. My legs were numb, my body frozen in place. She didn't blink, she didn't flinch. She just stared at me like I was a meal left on a table too long. Then she spoke, her voice slow and cold. "You need to come with me. I'll take good care of you and your baby." Her lips curled into a tight smile. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My voice had vanished somewhere in my throat. "Please, just leave me alone," I finally managed to whisper. "Do you want money?" I can give you money." She leaned in closer, her face now fully above the partition. "Keep your money," she hissed. "I don't want your money, I want your baby." My hands started shaking uncontrollably. She reached out, stretching her arms over the top of the stall, trying to grab at me. I screamed, loud and raw, and shoved the door open with all the force I had left. It slammed against the opposite wall as I stumbled out, nearly slipping. Behind me, I heard her jump down and follow. Her boots slapped the tile, echoing like gunshots in the confined space. I ran for the exit, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. As I burst into the parking lot, I saw no one, not a single soul. Her footsteps followed, faster now, and then her voice came again, sing-song and twisted. "Come here, I'll take good care of you too, come to me." I fumbled with my keys, crying, praying I'd make it to the car in time. Her hand caught the edge of the door just as I climbed in. I slammed it with all my strength. There was a sickening crunch and a scream, high, broken. Her wrist had cracked under the force. I didn't care. I locked the doors, started the engine and sped off, her voice still echoing behind me like a curse I'd never be rid of. I didn't stop driving until I saw the familiar curve of my aunt's street. My hands were still shaking on the wheel, and I could barely see through the tears clouding my eyes. As soon as I pulled into the driveway, I ran into the house, leaving the car door wide open. My aunt was sitting up in bed, pale but awake, and the moment she saw me, she knew something was wrong. I collapsed onto the edge of her mattress, sobbing, struggling to breathe between gasps as I tried to explain what had happened. The old woman, the bathroom, her eyes, her voice. My aunt reached for the phone without hesitation and called the police, her voice steady even though I could see the fear behind her eyes. After she hung up, she held my hand and whispered, "I should have warned you." I asked her what she meant, but she didn't answer right away. She just kept rubbing my arm like I was still a child waking up from a nightmare. The police arrived 20 minutes later. I told them everything, every detail, from the chips aisle to the bathroom stall to the car door slamming on her wrist. They searched the parking lot, the restroom, the nearby woods, but there was no sign of the old woman, not a fingerprint, not a drop of blood, nothing. For a moment, they looked at me like I had imagined it all, but I knew what I saw, what I felt, and a week later, that certainty hardened into something colder when my aunt showed me a news clipping in the local paper. A young woman, 26, had gone missing from the same Dollar Tree, the same store, same time of day. She had just given birth 2 weeks earlier. No one had seen her or her baby since. Since that night, I haven't stepped foot outside alone. My aunt insisted I stay indoors while she recovered, and I didn't argue. I couldn't. Something inside me had shifted. Nights became the worst. I'd lie in bed, eyes open, watching the ceiling while shadows moved across the window, even when the wind was still. I started having dreams, if you could call them that. In them, the woman would be standing at the edge of my bed, her hand outstretched, whispering over and over, "You were chosen." One morning, about 2 weeks later, I went to check the mailbox. The sun was barely up. The sky was a pale gray, and the street was quiet. I opened the metal door and pulled out a single envelope. No return address, no stamp. Just my name, written in shaky black ink. Inside was a photograph. It showed me at Dollar Tree standing at the checkout line, one hand resting on my belly. The image had been taken from behind, far enough away that I hadn't noticed. My blood ran cold. I turned the photo over, and written on the back in the same shaky handwriting were 5 words. "Next time I'll be faster." I stood there, frozen, the wind brushing against my skin. My aunt called out from the porch asking if everything was okay. I nodded, hiding the photo behind my back, but I knew it wasn't. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Around 2 in the morning, I heard the creak of the front gate. I told myself it was just the wind, but deep down I knew She hadn't stopped. She hadn't forgotten. And somewhere out there she was still watching, waiting for the next time. Story 2. The Man Who Thought He Was Jack Sparrow. I was 13 the summer my parents finally stopped pretending they loved each other. The shouting had gotten quieter, but the silence was worse. I used to lie on my bedroom floor sketching for hours, anything to shut out the tension that sat heavy in our tiny house like smoke. My dad started sleeping on the couch. My mom cried when she cooked, and I rode my bike to Dollar Tree. It was only 3 blocks away, next to a highway gas station, and it became my safe zone. Something about the smell of cheap plastic, cleaning products, and that cold fluorescent lighting made me feel invisible, in a good way. I'd save up coins from side jobs, yard work, washing cars, just to buy paint, pencils, sketch pads. I didn't need much, just aisles I could lose myself in, and shelves that didn't yell back. I went 2 or 3 times a week, always mid-afternoon when the store was almost empty. That place for a while was the quietest my life ever felt. I never expected that the most terrifying moment of my childhood would happen in the middle of that quiet. But it did. And it started with a hiccup. I had just found a new set of charcoal pencils on the bottom shelf of the art section, on sale too, when I heard it. A sudden hiccup, sharp and close behind me. I froze. Something about the sound didn't fit the silence of the aisle. Slowly I turned around. There, barely a foot away from me, stood a man dressed head to toe like Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. Not a cheap Halloween version. This was detailed, layered, accurate. His dreadlocked wig was matted, his eyeliner smudged. He had a toy compass dangling from his belt, and his long coat looked wet at the bottom. But it wasn't the costume that unnerved me. It was his eyes, bloodshot, glassy, and locked directly on mine. I caught the thick scent of whiskey on his breath before I even registered the odd smile creeping across his face. Sorry, I mumbled, stepping back. Didn't see you there. But I saw you, he replied, his voice slurred yet oddly theatrical. I gave a polite laugh, assuming he was some eccentric adult trying to be funny. But his eyes didn't break contact. You don't believe me, do you? He asked suddenly. I am Jack Sparrow. My smile faltered. Something in his tone had shifted. It wasn't a joke, it was insistence. Okay, I said, awkward. He leaned in closer, his breath sour. Then say it. Say it to your captain. I stepped back again, my pulse picking up. You're making me uncomfortable, I said quietly, hoping he'd take the hint. Instead, he tilted his head, watching me like prey. So this is mutiny, he whispered, and let out a low, guttural chuckle. That's when I realized I wasn't alone in the aisle. I was trapped. I tried to step around him, but he shifted sideways, blocking me. His boots squeaked on the linoleum as he tilted his head again, the way a bird might when sizing up something unfamiliar. You think I'm a joke, don't you? He asked, louder this time, voice slithering through the air like something slick and cold. But I've sailed further than you can imagine, seen the edge. You don't even know what's out there. I didn't answer. My fingers gripped the charcoal pencil set tighter as I looked past him, hoping for anyone in the next aisle. Nothing, I said, he hissed. Answer your captain, boy. His breath hit my face, sharp with whiskey and something rotting beneath it. My heartbeat thumped in my ears. I forced a laugh, more nervous than amused. You're the weirdest Jack Sparrow I've ever seen, I muttered. His expression changed instantly. The humor drained from his face, replaced by something brittle and cold. His pupils contracted. You mock me. No, Look, I need to go. I'm late. Too late, he whispered. He took a single step forward and I stepped back, into a shelf, knocking a pack of glue sticks onto the floor. The sharp clack startled both of us. I took the moment to sidestep him and dart toward the cashier. He didn't follow, but I could feel his stare drilling into my spine as I walked away, and in that instant I knew this wasn't over. I moved fast through the next aisle, pretending to browse, but really just trying to put distance between us. My hands were still shaking when I reached the front counter. The cashier, some teenager barely older than me, was half asleep, earbuds in, bobbing his head to music I couldn't hear. I dumped the pencils and paint onto the counter and muttered, "Just these." He rang them up without looking at me. I snuck a glance over my shoulder, expecting to see Jack Sparrow's boot stepping around the corner, but the aisle was empty. Too empty. The man had vanished. I paid quickly, grabbed my bag, and pushed open the front door, blinking as the sunlight hit me. I scanned the parking lot instinctively, my eyes going straight to where I'd left my bike, leaned up against the wall near the trash bins. But it wasn't there. My stomach dropped. I stood frozen, trying to convince myself I had just parked. It's somewhere else, maybe closer to the gas station, but then I heard it, ring, a bike bell, soft, mocking. I turned slowly toward the sound, toward the back of the lot, where the asphalt dipped into shadow. There, just beyond the flickering streetlight, something was moving, and that something was smiling. He was sitting on my bike like it was a throne, legs stretched out, hands lazily gripping the handlebars, the front tire turning slowly beneath him. From a distance, he might have looked like just another guy messing around. But up close, under the failing light, there was something wrong about the way he sat, too still, too poised, like he was waiting for a cue. His head jerked toward me, and even across the lot, I saw the grin spreading across his face. A crooked, slow, almost childlike grin. Then he lifted one hand and rang. The bell again. Ring. Found myself a new ship, he shouted. My legs wouldn't move at first. I just stood there blinking, my body refusing to process the absurdity in front of me. But then he started pedaling, slowly at first, then faster, right at me. Run, boy, he cackled, voice rising into a shriek of delight. And I did. I turned and bolted toward the sidewalk, shoes slapping the pavement, backpack bouncing. His laughter chased me. The tires screeched as he swerved, gaining speed. He yelled something else, couldn't make it out, but it sounded like another drunken pirate quote, warped by madness. I glanced back once and saw the front wheel of my own bike maybe 10 feet behind me, his hair flying wildly as he leaned forward with that manic grin. There were no cars, no people, just the sound of pedaling and laughter, and my own ragged breath tearing through my lungs. I veered off the sidewalk and ran onto the shoulder of the highway, not even thinking, just moving. Somewhere in my panic I screamed, hoping anyone would hear me. But it was all open road and dry heat. The sound of the bike got louder, closer. He was going to catch me, and I had no idea what he would do if he did. I don't know how long I ran. Seconds, maybe minutes, but my lungs were on fire, my legs giving out. The heat pressed down like a second skin, and my vision blurred at the edges. I couldn't keep going. Behind me, the bell rang again, and I heard him shout, "I'm gonna catch you, cabin boy." His voice cracked with glee. He was enjoying this. Just as my knees began to buckle, I heard it, a honk. Loud, sharp, a deep truck horn. I looked up and saw a large delivery truck barreling toward us from down the highway, maybe 50 yards away. The cab lights flared through the shimmering heat. I stumbled into the middle of the road, flailing my arms, screaming, "Stop, please! Help!" The truck began to slow, brakes hissing as the driver leaned out of the window, confusion on his face. Behind me, the bicycle tires skidded hard. I turned my head. Jack Sparrow had stopped pedaling. He was maybe 20 feet away now, standing, With one foot on the ground, bike crooked beneath him. He wasn't laughing anymore. His smile had disappeared. He looked at the truck, then back at me, and then slowly, deliberately, he kicked my bike to the ground. It hit the asphalt with a metallic crunch, the bells snapping off and skittering across the road. Then he turned and ran, straight into the thick line of trees bordering the highway. The driver pulled up beside me, wide-eyed. "Kid, you okay?" I nodded, barely able to breathe. "Please, take me home." He helped me climb in, and I sat in silence, drenched in sweat, clutching my bag like a lifeline. I didn't look back at the woods. I didn't want to know if he was still watching. I didn't speak during the ride, except to mutter my address. The truck driver kept glancing over, probably wondering what kind of nightmare I'd just crawled out of. When we pulled up to my house, I thanked him without making eye contact and stumbled inside. I went straight to my room, locked the door, and collapsed onto the floor, still clutching the broken pack of charcoal pencils. For the next week, I didn't leave the house, not for school, not for groceries, not even for air. Every time I heard a bike bell outside, I froze. I didn't tell anyone, not my parents, not the cops. Who would believe me? A drunk pirate stole your bike and chased you down the highway. It sounded insane. But a few days later, my dad showed me a local news segment. Brief, almost dismissed. Vandalized campsite found in woods off Highway 18. No suspects, just a torn tent, beer bottles, and a worn leather coat. The camera zoomed in on it. Dark, soaked at the bottom, with tangled synthetic dreadlocks still attached. They also found a small hunting knife inside one of the boots, and tucked beneath that, a folded photo of a boy. Not me. Someone else. Someone younger. Someone still missing. Story 3. He parked beside my car and waited. It was a quiet Thursday evening, the kind that made the world feel like it had paused just for a moment. I was working the closing shift at the Dollar Tree on the edge of town, a place that never really got busy past 8. The sky had been grey all day, but around 7 p.m. a soft drizzle began tapping against the front windows. I liked working during rain. It made everything feel distant, calmer. The store was nearly empty, just a few scattered customers who came and went without much conversation. I kept the place tidy, straightened the aisles, restocked some snacks, then returned to my checkout lane. The sound of the rain outside paired with the humming fluorescent lights was almost hypnotic. My car sat alone in the parking lot, parked near one of the trees that always dripped a little extra when it rained. I checked the clock. Just after 9, an hour left. I had already mopped the floor and counted down my till. All I had to do now was sit, scroll my phone, and wait. But something about the way the rain started to pick up felt different, like the air was holding its breath. And I didn't know it yet, but so was I. At around 9:15, I noticed headlights cutting through the rain-soaked parking lot. A car pulled in slowly, windshield wipers flapping in lazy rhythm. It was an older model, an early 2000s sedan, dark blue with patches of rust along the fenders. I didn't think much of it until I saw where it parked, not up close like most customers did when it was raining. Instead, it chose a spot halfway across the lot, under the only broken streetlight. I watched as the driver door creaked open and a man stepped out. He was big, not muscular, just solid, with a blue raincoat that clung to his shoulders and a grey baseball cap pulled low. I expected him to walk quickly, maybe shake off the rain like most people would, but he didn't. He strolled, almost, deliberately, eyes scanning the storefront as he approached. When he came in, the door's chime echoed unusually loud in the quiet store. I gave a polite smile and a soft evening, but he didn't answer. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he turned left and wandered slowly into the aisles. I watched him disappear past the canned food section, hands in his coat pockets, his footsteps muffled by the wet soles of his shoes. At first I figured he was just tired or cold, maybe a little odd but harmless. Still, something about the way he moved, not nervous, not lost, just present, made me pause. It wasn't until he came back toward the front that I realized he hadn't picked up a single item. He drifted past the register without a word, his coat still dripping, his hands still buried deep in the pockets. Our eyes met for a second, just long enough for me to try another polite smile. But his face didn't move. No nod, no blink, nothing. He pushed open the door and walked back into the rain like he had never been inside at all. I watched through the front window as he made his way to the far side of the parking lot. He climbed into his car, started it, headlights cutting through the mist. Then he pulled away. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Something about him had put my nerves on edge, though I couldn't explain why. I glanced at the time, 9:28, almost done. I wiped down the counter again just to stay busy, then walked the aisles one last time to make sure everything was in order. No messes, no customers. I turned off the music, went to the back and clocked out right at 10. When I came back to the front, I froze. There were headlights in the lot again. Same old car, same broken streetlight. But this time, he didn't park in the open. He had pulled in right next to my car, driver's side to driver's side, so close that I wouldn't even be able to open my door without brushing against his. He didn't get out. The engine was running, wipers swiping back and forth. His silhouette sat still behind the glass, waiting, watching. And suddenly I knew this wasn't some late-night shopper who forgot something. This was something else entirely. I stood behind the locked glass doors, heart thudding, staring out into the rain-soaked lot. His car hadn't moved. The headlights stayed on, engine idling like a low growl under the wind. I stepped to the side, hoping he couldn't see me clearly through the reflection, and peeked around the edge of the window. He was still sitting there, still not moving. I debated going out. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he really had forgotten something and just parked poorly. But then I remembered he didn't buy anything, didn't touch a product, didn't speak. He had no reason to be back. I grabbed my phone from under the counter and sat on the stool, pretending to scroll while sneaking glances every few seconds. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Still there. Every instinct screamed at me to stay put. At 10:20, I texted my best friend, Bray, who lived 10 minutes away. Told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "I'm coming, wait inside, don't move." Nodded to my phone like she could see me. By 10:30, I hadn't taken my eyes off that car. The windshield had started fogging up, but I could still make out the man's shape. The outline of his cap, his shoulders, still unmoving. Then something changed. He leaned forward, his face pressed closer to the driver's side window, angled toward the store. He knew I was watching, and somehow I knew he wanted me to come outside first. When I saw Bray's headlights turn into the lot, I almost cried. Her little hatchback pulled up fast, cutting across the empty spaces until she was parked directly in front of the store. I didn't wait. I unlocked the door, pushed it open, and ran through the rain without looking back. She had already leaned over to unlock the passenger door. I slid in, slammed it shut, and barely managed a go before she threw the car into drive and peeled out. As we turned onto the main road, I finally dared to glance behind us. The man's car was still there, still parked beside mine, engine running. But now his headlights were off. He hadn't followed. Thus, Bray kept one hand on the wheel, the other on my arm. "Jesus, you're shaking. What the hell happened?" I told her everything, every detail. By the time we reached her house, my voice was hoarse. We called the police. An officer met us 20 minutes later. I gave my statement, described the car, the man, everything. They said they'd send a unit to check the store lot and review security footage in the morning. Later that night, Bray drove me back so I could get my car. The man's vehicle was gone. Just a dark, wet parking spot where both cars had been. Mine looked untouched, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd sat there a long time after I left. Maybe thinking, maybe planning. The next morning, my manager texted me. The footage was being pulled, but something in his message made my stomach twist. "He's been in here before," he wrote, "4 times this week, always around closing, never bought anything." He had been studying me, waiting for the right night. 2 days later, the police followed up. They had reviewed the footage, same as my manager. The man had indeed come into the store on 4 separate nights that week, always between 9:10 and 9:30 p.m. He never interacted with anyone, never touched a shelf, just walked the aisles slowly, looked around, then left. Each time he parked, in a different spot, never close to the door, never too far. Just enough to see who came and went, but it was the last clip that made my blood run cold. In the footage from the night he returned and parked beside my car, the officers noticed something. I hadn't. He had gotten out briefly, just for a moment. While I was in the back clocking out, he had stepped out, walked around my car, then leaned against the passenger side door for several minutes, head turned toward the store. Then he slid something under my windshield wiper and got back in his car. The cops asked if I had seen the note. There was no note when I got there. It was gone by the time Bria and I returned. Who took it? What did it say? I never found out. But ever since that night, I've been looking over my shoulder in parking lots. I moved apartments, changed my schedule, and every time I close up, I walk to my car with my keys between my fingers, because I don't know who he was, and worse, I don't know if he's still watching. Story 4. What I saw behind the supermarket. The rain had started just before my shift, and by the time it got dark, it had turned into a full-blown storm. Thick sheets of water slammed against the windows of the supermarket like angry waves. I worked in a small-town store tucked between a gas station and an old mechanic's garage. Nothing fancy, just one of those quiet places where the night crew was usually more scared of boredom than anything else. That night, it was just me, Maria, and Victor, the janitor. The power had already flickered twice before we even hit 8 p.m., and the wind outside howled like it was trying to peel the roof off. But what I remember most was the stillness inside. No customers, no carts. Just the humming of the freezer units and the distant thunder rumbling like a warning no one wanted to hear. Maria was restocking cereal boxes near the front. Victor was somewhere in the back, mopping the floor. I stood near customer service, sipping the last of my vending machine coffee, watching the lightning flash across the parking lot. And that's when I noticed them. 2 stray dogs picking through the knocked-over dumpster, just beyond the store's back fence. They were growling at something I couldn't see, something just beyond the light. At first, I thought the dogs were just fighting over scraps. One of them barked sharply, lunging forward while the other backed away, fur raised and teeth bared. But then both of them froze, eyes fixed on something deeper in the tree line, just beyond the dumpster. That's when I saw it. The bushes moved. Not like the wind was shaking them, but like something inside was pushing through slowly. The movement was strange, uneven and jerky, not smooth like an animal passing through. The branches twitched, then stilled, then twitched again like something breathing just beneath them. The dogs started growling low and pacing backward. One whimpered and turned to run. The other stayed for a second longer, then did the same. And suddenly the bush stopped moving altogether. I leaned closer to the glass, squinting through the rain. That's when I saw them. 2 yellow orbs glowing, faintly in the darkness, not reflecting the light like normal animal eyes, but almost pulsing. They were too far apart, too high off the ground. I blinked. They were gone. I stepped back from the window, heart suddenly racing. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of the lightning, maybe a deer, maybe a raccoon, but deep down I knew better. That movement, those eyes, they weren't normal, they weren't natural, and whatever was out there, it wasn't finished watching me yet. I stepped away from the window and made my way toward the cereal aisle where Maria was stacking boxes. She looked up and raised an eyebrow when she saw my face. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said, half laughing. I hesitated, not sure how to explain what I'd seen without sounding ridiculous. "There's something out back," I said, quietly. "In the bushes. I saw 2 dogs freaking out, and then something moved. I swear I saw eyes, big ones." Maria rolled her eyes. "Probably a raccoon or a possum. You know this place always gets weird in the rain." I didn't say anything. I just kept looking toward the back of the store, toward the loading dock. Something still felt wrong. Heavy. Victor appeared a moment later, pushing his mop bucket. "You two telling ghost stories?" he asked, grinning. I shook my head. "No, I'm serious. I think something's back there. Maybe you should check." Victor smirked. "All right, I'll go poke the bush with my mighty mop." He was joking, but I wasn't laughing. "Just be careful," I said. "Relax," Maria added. "Nothing ever happens in this dump." But I kept glancing toward the rear exit. That strange movement, those glowing eyes, they weren't a joke. I could still feel them out there, hiding, just past the light. And deep down I had the sinking feeling that we'd just ignored the only warning we were going to get. A few minutes later, the lights flickered hard, twice, before shutting off completely. The entire store fell into blackness, except for the occasional flash of lightning through the windows. Maria groaned and pulled out her phone. Great, perfect timing. Victor was already walking toward the back, mumbling something about the circuit breakers. I stayed near the front, too anxious to follow him, too afraid to be alone. Maria lit a couple of emergency candles we kept near the register. Their glow was soft, trembling. The storm outside kept beating on the roof, and the wind made the glass doors rattle like something was trying to get in. After a minute, Victor reappeared with a flashlight and his mop still in hand. "Breakers are dead," he said. "Whole block's probably out." I didn't answer. I was looking toward the back doors again. That feeling was back, thick, tight, like the air was pressing against my lungs. I stepped closer to the exit, to peek through the glass window, and that's when I saw them again. The eyes, they blinked. Slowly. They were closer now, just beyond the chain-link fence, glowing in the dark like sick lanterns. I jumped back instinctively. "What is it?" Victor asked. "There's something out there," I whispered. "It's not an animal, it's watching us." Victor sighed and handed me the flashlight. "Fine, let's go take a look." Maria followed behind him against my protests. We opened the rear door cautiously and stepped outside into the wet, pulsing darkness. The bush where I'd seen the movement was still swaying, though there was no wind now. Victor approached slowly, flashlight beam jittering in his hand. "Probably a damn cat," he muttered. He nudged the bush with his mop handle, and then a shape burst upward, not leaping, rising. The flashlight caught it mid-motion. Hairless grey skin stretched tight over a bony frame, long limbs with joints that bent the wrong way. Its face was flat, human-like but wrong, with a jaw that unhinged slowly as it opened its mouth, and it smiled, wide, sharp, hungry. Maria screamed first. The creature lunged with impossible speed, not running, not leaping, but gliding forward like it was weightless. In a blink it was on her. I froze. My legs wouldn't move. Maria tried to back away, but its long arm swung wide and knocked her off her feet like she was nothing. She hit the wet ground hard, screaming, scrambling to crawl back. Victor shouted and swung his mop, striking the creature's side. The wooden handle snapped in half. It turned to Victor and hissed. No, not a hiss. It was deeper, guttural, almost like laughter strangled in a throat too dry to speak. Maria got up, stumbling. bleeding from her temple. She tried to run. The creature moved again, its limbs bending sideways as it launched itself in front of her. In one grotesque motion, it raised a long, clawed hand and slashed. Maria's scream was cut short as her body crumpled. I watched in horror as it dragged her toward the bush like a doll, one arm wrapped around her midsection. Then, with unnatural force, it pulled her in and twisted. The sound, that snap, was like a branch breaking under too much weight. Her body folded in two. Victor grabbed my arm. "Inside! Now!" We ran, slipping on the wet pavement, slamming the back door shut, just as the creature lunged again. It hit the door with a thud that made the whole frame shake. Victor slid the bolt and leaned against it, panting, face pale. "She's gone," I whispered, shaking. "Oh my God, she's gone." Victor didn't say anything. He just looked at me with wide, hollow eyes. From the other side of the door, we heard a low scratching, not frantic, not desperate, curious. It dragged something. Across the metal, maybe claws, maybe Maria's broken necklace. We didn't know. All we knew was that it hadn't left yet. It was waiting, and it knew we were still inside. We stayed inside the store until dawn. Neither of us slept. The emergency lights flickered on sometime after 4 a.m., casting everything in a sickly, pulsing red. We didn't hear the creature again after that scratching. No footsteps, no banging, just silence. But silence can be worse. Silence lets your imagination breathe. At sunrise, the power returned. The lights blinked back on like nothing had happened. The storm had passed. The parking lot was soaked, but empty. When the manager arrived around 7, we told him everything. He didn't believe us, at least not entirely. He called the cops when Maria didn't answer her phone. They searched the lot, the woods behind the fence, and the bush where it had all happened. No blood, no torn. Uniform. No footprints, just a patch of flattened grass and the smell of wet soil. Maria was listed as a missing person. That was it. No Amber Alert, no search dogs, just a folder and a photo on a bulletin board. Victor quit that same day. Moved in with his cousin 3 towns over. I tried to go back for a few more shifts, but I couldn't even walk near the back exit. I started seeing those yellow eyes in the reflection of the freezer doors, in the rearview mirror of my car. I told myself it was trauma. Until last week, my cousin sent me a video. Something going around in a local Facebook group. It was night vision footage from a school rooftop camera across town. At first it showed nothing. Then from the left side of the screen, something scuttled into view. It moved on all fours. Too fast. Too silent. Then it paused and looked up at the camera. 2 yellow eyes glowed like dying stars. It was still here, still watching, just waiting for someone else to ignore the warning. Story 5. He followed me home from the aisle. It was late Saturday afternoon when I stopped by the dollar store near my apartment. I wasn't there for anything special, just picking up a few cleaning supplies and snacks. The place was never busy this time of day, which I liked. Only 2 other people were inside, and the cashier looked half asleep behind the counter. The store had that usual scent, cheap plastic and lemon disinfectant, and everything was quiet except for the faint hum of the fridge units in the back. I had just grabbed a basket and turned down the toiletries aisle when I saw him. The man stood at the far end, facing the wall like he was studying the soap bottles. He wore a faded green sweater that hung off his shoulders and grey dress pants that didn't quite match. At first glance, he didn't look homeless, but he didn't look clean either. There was something off about him. Not the clothes exactly, but the way he stood, completely still. One hand in his pocket, the other holding an open beer bottle like it was the most normal thing in the world. Yes, a beer. He wasn't hiding it. Just sipping casually inside the store like it was a park bench. No cart, no basket, just him and that bottle staring at the shelves without blinking. I slowed my steps, unsure if I should turn around or keep walking. That's when he noticed me and smiled, not a polite smile. A slow, knowing grin that didn't reach his eyes. I quickly looked away and kept walking, pretending to be focused on the toothpaste section, but my mind kept circling back to that grin. It wasn't warm. It wasn't casual. It felt personal, like he knew something I didn't. I kept browsing, half distracted, listening closely for the sound of his footsteps, but I didn't hear anything. When I finally circled around to the snack aisle, I saw him again, still with that bottle, now leaning against a shelf like he owned the place. Another unopened beer stuck out of his jacket pocket. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't browsing. He was just lingering. That's when one of the employees, someone I'd seen working there before, walked up to him cautiously. She looked uncomfortable but firm, voice quiet but clear. "Sir, you can't drink in here. You'll need to take that outside." The man didn't respond at first, just looked at her with the same eerie calm. Then, without warning, he muttered something I couldn't hear and shoved the bottle into his coat. He turned and walked slowly toward the exit, never raising his voice, never rushing. But as he passed me, he glanced over again and muttered, "Some people just don't know when to mind their business." I froze. My stomach dropped. His voice was low but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. I didn't respond, just waited, until the door chimed behind him, and watched through the window as he disappeared around the corner of the building. I told myself that was the end of it, but I was wrong. I finished my shopping quickly after that, still shaken by the encounter. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting the man to reappear in another aisle, but he didn't. When I stepped outside, the sky had turned a dull gray, the light already fading even though it wasn't quite evening. I held my bag tight and started the 10-minute walk back to my apartment. The streets were quiet, as usual, just the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional distant car passing by. I had made it halfway home when I saw him again. He was standing by a mailbox up ahead, just off the sidewalk, holding a fresh beer in one hand and staring right at me. That same green sweater, same grey pants, same blank expression. He wasn't smiling this time, just watching. I slowed instinctively. My chest tightened. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe it was a coincidence. But something in my gut said otherwise. As I approached, I tried to keep my voice steady. "Hey, you okay?" He didn't answer, just took a sip, eyes never leaving mine. Then, without warning, he barked, "Where do you think you're going?" I froze. "Home. I live right down the street." His grip on the bottle tightened. "Not yet, you don't." He stepped forward. Not fast, not loud. Just close enough to make it clear he wasn't done with me. I backed up a step, heart pounding. "I don't want any trouble," I said. He smiled again. "But I do," he whispered, and then he reached for me. The moment his hand brushed my shoulder, I snapped. Instinct took over. I jerked away hard and bolted down the sidewalk, heart thudding in my chest like a war drum. I didn't look back. I didn't want to know if he was chasing me. I just ran. My bag slapped against my side and my legs burned, but I didn't stop until I reached my apartment building. I slammed the main door behind me, locked it and darted up the stairs 2 at a time. When I got into my unit, I collapsed against the door, gasping for air, hands shaking so badly I could barely take my keys out of the lock. I peeked out the window, half expecting to see that green sweater at the corner, but the street was empty, just wind and the faint flicker of the street lamp. I didn't sleep much that night, but what really messed with me happened the next morning. When I stepped outside to leave for work, I noticed something on the windshield of my car, a 6-pack of beer, the same brand he was drinking. No note, no message, just the plastic ring still wet with condensation and sitting perfectly in the center of the glass. I scanned the street, every window, every car. Nothing. It wasn't a gift. It was a message. He knew where I lived, and now I knew he could come back. Whenever he wanted. I called the police that morning, filed a report, gave a full description of the man, the beer, the incident outside the store. An officer came by, took some photos of the six-pack, asked a few questions and promised to keep an eye out. But the way he said it made it clear they didn't expect to find much. No cameras on my street, no fingerprints on the bottles. Just a vague warning to stay alert and call again if he returns. Days passed. I started parking in different spots, changed my walking routes, always carried pepper spray, even to throw out the trash. But I never saw him again. Then, about a week later, my upstairs neighbor, Jared, disappeared. No one noticed at first. Jared kept to himself, lived alone, worked nights mostly. But his car hadn't moved in 3 days and the mail piled up in his box. When management finally opened the door, the apartment was empty. No signs of struggle, no signs of anything. Really, except a beer bottle sitting upright on his kitchen counter. Same brand, same label, same condensation ring beneath it. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the building made me flinch. Every shadow through the blinds looked like the shape of a man in a green sweater. They still haven't found Jared, and no one's come looking for me since. But every few weeks, a beer shows up somewhere new. My car, my porch, once even inside the laundry room downstairs. He never says a word. He doesn't have to. I already understand the message. He didn't stop watching. He just changed who he's watching next. There's something uniquely terrifying about being targeted by someone who never raises their voice, never breaks the law loud enough to be caught, but always lets you know they're there. That kind of quiet danger. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It lingers. It waits. I moved apartments after Jared disappeared. Didn't tell anyone where. New place, new locks, new job. I even stopped going to the dollar store entirely. For a while I thought maybe I'd imagined parts of it. Maybe I'd just been paranoid. Trauma can twist memory, can't it? Then 2 months later I found another bottle. Same brand, same spot. In the stairwell of my new building. No one else in the building drinks it. I know, I asked. Some even laughed when I explained the label. But I wasn't laughing. And I haven't slept properly since, because it's not just about being followed. It's not about a man in a green sweater. It's about what happens when you don't take a warning seriously. When the creep in the aisle seems too strange to matter. When the bottle on your windshield feels like just a prank. When the missing neighbor becomes another odd case the police quietly shelve. He never needed to hurt me. Not physically. He just needed me to know that I was never really alone again. And now every time I step into a store or walk home, or even hear the sound of a glass bottle tipping over, my heart skips. My hands shake. And I wonder, is he watching again? From behind the aisle, from across the parking lot? Or maybe from right outside the door, waiting, smiling, with another gift in his hand? Story 6. The woman who tried to burn my family alive. It was supposed to be a small celebration. My husband, Thomas, had just landed a new job after 6 months of struggling, and although we didn't have much, we wanted to give our 2 kids something to smile about. Dollar Tree was our go-to place, not because it was fancy, but because it was enough. The kids loved picking out little toys, and we could walk the aisles without worrying about price tags. That day, we promised each of them one item of their choice. Gwen went straight for the toy planes. Martine, our oldest, found a plastic helicopter. I remember smiling as I watched them. So easy to please when you give them a little freedom and a bit of joy. Thomas picked out a screwdriver we needed for weeks, and I wandered to the home decor section. That's where I saw it. A picture. Frame I had admired a month earlier, still sitting there like it had waited for me. It was nothing expensive, just a simple wooden frame, but to me it meant something. I wanted to put our family photo in it, Hang it beside our bed, and remember that even in hard times we still had each other. I should have known happiness never comes that easy. Just as I reached for the frame, a sharp hand shoved my arm aside and yanked it off the shelf. I stumbled back, startled, and looked up into the face of a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, athletic, with blonde hair pulled tight into a ponytail. Her leggings and jacket screamed high-end brands. Her expression? Pure contempt. I saw it first, she snapped. I blinked. You just got here. I've been standing here looking at it. She laughed, sharp and loud. Please. You people always feel so entitled. Just because something's cheap doesn't... I mean, it's yours. I felt my face flush. I wasn't being rude. I was just reaching for it. Well, now I've got it, she said, gripping the frame tighter. So why don't you go back to whatever part of the store you came from? Stood my ground. You don't have to be disrespectful. That's when she leaned closer, voice dropping. Respect has to be earned, sweetheart. And by the look of those clothes, I doubt you've earned anything. My jaw clenched. Behind her, I saw Gwen watching from the toy aisle, confused. Thomas had just turned the corner, holding a pack of batteries. This woman wasn't just insulting me, she was insulting my family, and I was about to show her exactly what a mother does when you push too far. I didn't say another word. I simply reached forward, snatched the frame out of her hand, turned my back on her stunned expression, and walked away with my head held high. Thomas saw the tension on my face and started to ask what happened, but I just whispered, "Let's pay and go." Gwen and Martine ran up to us, still clutching their toys, unaware of the storm brewing just a few aisles away. We left the store quickly, loaded our small bag of items into the back seat, and got the kids settled. Thomas went to start the car while I buckled Gwen in. That's when the engine sputtered. Again and again, Thomas cursed under his breath and popped the door open. "What the hell?" he muttered, stepping out to check the tires. I heard the breath catch in his throat. No way. I ran around the back of the car. 2 of the tires, completely slashed. Long, clean cuts like they'd been made with a blade. I looked up instinctively, scanning the lot, and there she was, the woman from before, standing by her SUV, arms crossed, watching us with the faintest smile curling at her lips. Then she started walking toward us. Thomas moved forward, fists clenched. "Stay away from my wife." But she didn't stop. She reached into her designer purse and pulled out something small, metal. I recognized the glint before Thomas did. It was a tire iron. She didn't say a word as she raised it and slammed it across our hood, hard enough to dent the metal. The kids screamed inside the car, and that's when I knew this wasn't about a picture frame anymore. Thomas rushed toward her, yelling, "Are you insane?" But before he could even get close, she spun around and struck him across the knee with the tire iron. The crack echoed through the parking lot like a gunshot. He collapsed instantly, groaning in pain, trying to crawl away. She stood over him, wild-eyed, and stomped on his back, grinding her foot into him like he was dirt under her shoe. I screamed and jumped out of the car, heart pounding, only to be met with the same weapon slamming into my stomach. I fell hard, gasping for air, the world spinning as my head smacked the pavement. Through the haze I heard her laughing, actually laughing, as if she were enjoying the chaos she'd created. The kids were crying now, pounding on the car windows, too afraid to get out. And then she said it, through gritted teeth, her voice shaking with rage. "You filthy people think you can disrespect me? Ruin my day." She walked to the side of the car, still holding the tire iron, and started banging on the windows. Then she stopped, turned, and opened the trunk of her SUV. What she pulled out made my blood run cold, a red plastic gas can. She began pouring it across the hood of our car, onto the windshield, and finally around the tires. Thomas tried to yell, to crawl, but his leg was bent wrong, useless. I dragged myself forward, screaming, "No, please, my kids are in there." She looked down at me, eyes glassy with rage. Then she pulled a lighter from her coat pocket and flicked it once, twice. The flame sputtered to life, and she smiled. Just as she raised the lighter toward the car, a blur of motion shot in from the side. A man, someone I didn't even see coming, slammed into her full force, tackling her to the ground before the flame could reach the gasoline. The lighter flew from her hand and skittered across the pavement, extinguishing instantly. She shrieked like an animal and fought back, clawing at him, kicking, trying to reach for the tire iron again. But another person, a woman this time, ran in and grabbed it before she could. More voices. More footsteps. People had finally taken notice. Shoppers, employees, even someone from the gas station next door came rushing over. Within seconds, the woman was pinned to the ground, her screams turning into sobs, her body thrashing wildly. As if possessed, the police arrived minutes later. Thomas and I were treated by EMTs. The kids were pulled from the car, still sobbing, their faces pale with terror. I held them both close, shaking, unable to process how close we'd come to losing everything. The woman was arrested on the spot. Later, we found out she had a long history of violent outbursts, restraining orders, psychiatric holds, a family that had tried for years to get her institutionalized. They even offered us money to stay quiet. A lot of it we refused, because no amount of money would erase what she almost did, what our kids almost saw happen. She wanted to punish us for standing up to her. Instead, she showed the world exactly what kind of monster hides behind expensive clothes and forced smiles, and for once someone like her wouldn't walk away without consequences. In the weeks that followed, our story spread. News stations picked it up, and strangers began reaching out, some offering support, others sharing similar nightmares. We couldn't return to work immediately. Thomas needed surgery on his knee, and I was healing from internal bruising and a cracked rib. But we weren't alone. Donations came in from people we'd never met, people who saw themselves in us, not because we were special, but because we were normal. A family trying to celebrate a small win, torn apart by someone who thought they were better. The woman lost everything. Her family publicly disowned her. Her bank accounts were frozen. The courts denied bail. For the first time in her life, she would face real consequences. Not a slap on the wrist, not a quiet cover-up, but actual accountability. And as for us, we bought a new picture frame. Not the same one, but close. We put our family photo in it just like I dreamed and hung it in our living room. Not to remind us of the pain, but of what we survived. Because some people walk into your life trying to destroy it, and some moments try to break your spirit. But if you hold on to each other, really hold on, you win. Even when the world tries to tear you down, especially then. Thank you for venturing into the darkness with us. If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't keep the fear to yourself. Leave a comment, smash that like button, and share this video with someone who dares to listen in the dark. We release terrifying true stories every week, so be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's lurking in the shadows. This is High Scare Stories, where nightmares don't end when the video does. Until next time, stay safe and stay scared.